Welcome, healthcare providers. Today we're focusing on esophageal varices. What exactly are esophageal varices and what causes them to develop?
Sure. They're essentially enlarged, swollen veins in the lower part of the esophagus. The main driver is almost always portal hypertension.
Portal hypertension.
Right.
Increased pressure in the portal vein.
Exactly. And that pressure usually comes from liver disease, most commonly cirrhosis, though sometimes you see other causes like blood clots in the portal vein or even infections like Schistosomiasis.
And that pressure is dangerous.
Extremely.
Wow.
It makes these veins prone to rupture. We're talking about potentially catastrophic bleeding. Shockingly, even now, a bleeding episode has something like a 15 to 20% mortality rate.
15 to 20%.
Wow.
So, okay, the liver acts like a dam, pressure builds. How does the body then physiologically create these specific varices?
Well, when that normal path through the liver is blocked or restricted, the pressure in the portal system increases significantly. The body tries to find detours,
Alternate routes for the blood flow.
Precisely. And this high-pressure blood gets forced into smaller, thinner-walled veins that aren't designed for it, particularly those connecting the portal system to the systemic circulation in the esophagus. They swell up, they dilate, and those are your varices.
That makes sense. Now, clinically, this sounds like a hidden threat.
Mm.
When do patients typically start showing symptoms? What should we be watching for?
That's the tricky part. Often, patients are completely asymptomatic until they bleed. So for anyone you know or suspect has cirrhosis, screening with endoscopy is really standard practice. We want to find them before they bleed.
And if they do bleed, what are the signs then?
The classic signs are vomiting blood hematemesis or having those black tarry stools, melena. Sometimes it's bright red blood per rectum. Patients might also feel very lightheaded, dizzy, or even lose consciousness because of the blood loss.
Okay, those are the acute bleeding signs. But varices point to a bigger liver issue, right? What other, maybe more subtle signs of underlying liver disease should we be looking for?
Absolutely. You need to look for the broader picture of liver decompensation, things like jaundice, that yellowing of the skin and eyes.
Right.
Also, look for easy bruising or bleeding tendencies. And ascites, which is that fluid buildup in the abdomen, that's a major sign of significant portal hypertension and liver dysfunction.
Got it. So, knowing all this, what specific factors really crank up the risk of these varices actually bleeding? Are there particular red flags?
Yes, there definitely are. High portal pressure itself is a major risk factor, obviously. Then during endoscopy, the size of the varices matters. Larger ones are riskier.
Bigger means more likely to pop.
Sort of, yes. And also specific signs on the varices themselves, like little red marks or spots, we call them red whale marks or cherry red spots, those indicate a higher risk of rupture. And of course, the severity of the underlying liver disease is huge. Advanced cirrhosis, active liver failure, continued heavy alcohol use. Those all increase the risk. And having bled once before significantly raises the risk of bleeding again.
Which leads to the really serious complications. What are the immediate dangers and how do we nail down the diagnosis?
The number one danger is life-threatening hemorrhage, massive bleeding. That can lead to shock, requires urgent intervention, and as we said, carries a real risk of death. Rebleeding is also very common.
And confirming it.
Diagnosis is usually suspected in anyone with known liver disease, especially cirrhosis. Confirmation comes from an upper endoscopy. That lets us directly see the varices, assess their size, and look for those high-risk signs.
So endoscopy is key for diagnosis and risk assessment. Now, what about managing this? Can we actually prevent these varices from forming? What are the strategies?
Well, preventing them from forming in someone who already has advanced cirrhosis, that's generally not possible. Our focus shifts to preventing the first bleed.
Primary prophylaxis.
Exactly. And for that, non-selective beta blockers like propranolol or nadolol are the first-line treatment. They work by lowering the pressure in the portal vein.
How do they do that?
They reduce blood flow into the portal system. The trick is finding the right dose, enough to lower pressure without causing problematic low blood pressure systemically.
Makes sense. And beyond medications.
Lifestyle is absolutely fundamental.
Right.
Complete abstinence from alcohol is non-negotiable. A healthy diet helps fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein. Maintaining a healthy weight is important too.
Standard liver health advice, but amplified here.
Very much so. Also, minimizing exposure to liver-damaging chemicals and, importantly, preventing viral hepatitis, so things like avoiding sharing needles. Regular medical checkups and constant vigilance for any signs of bleeding are also critical for these patients.
This really highlights how serious esophageal varices are in the context of liver disease. That bleeding risk is a true medical emergency.
It is, and something that maybe gets less focus but is so important is the ongoing monitoring and really hammering home those lifestyle changes with patients. It's tough but vital. Thinking beyond just managing the immediate crisis, how can we better weave these prevention and monitoring strategies into consistent, long-term patient support to genuinely cut down that risk of rebleeding and improve their overall outlook?